Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Super Mario 64. In the last part we finally reached the final floor of main courses here in Peach's Castle and started off Tick-Tock Clock in specific, and now we're gonna go finish this world on off before moving on to the final of the main courses. We're gonna speed up the start of Mission 5 here because at this point you know the climb up Tick-Tock Clock, you know how it's kinda tedious and all that jazz. For Mission 5 we need to get just over halfway up Tick-Tock Clock itself. Namely after with this elevator coming up here, because there's a section of iron grating we didn't explore over that's just above where we got the second star. There's a secondary platform on that actively has moving pillars, assuming the clock is moving at all. We need to jump across them up to the top to get that next star. Of course, you can only get this star while the clock is moving, so, what am I standing on? Make sure you enter the level with the clock facing 3, 6, or 9 to actually get this. 3 would ultimately be probably the easiest one to do, but you could do 9, just good luck. And 6 is just, well, unpredictable, so mileage may vary on that. Jumping into there a little bit can be slightly awkward, because I think if you just walk over to there, you do fall down, but it's very quick. So with that, only 2 stars remain in Tick-Tock Clock, counting the 100 coin star, and we're going to be getting both it and the final main star at the same time. Time for this level's 8 red coins, which the game itself even recommends putting the big hand at 12 for because it's time to stop time for red coins. All 8 red coins are actually very close to the entrance of the level. They're directly behind you on those rotating platforms. But since I'm going for the 100 coins as well, I have a little bit more of a trek in my future. While having time stopped actively makes getting, say, the blue coin switch a little safer, platforming around the higher up you get is going to get a lot rougher, to the point where in order to make it higher than where we are right now, you need to do a really awkward side hop into wall jump to make it to one of the rotating platforms like I just did. That took me about a minute there in the actual recording, but in practice I was doing that for like 10 minutes trying to get the jump right, and I just couldn't for some reason. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of how wall jump feels in this specific entry. Once you have about 16 coins left to get, I'd recommend just slowly climbing down and making your way back towards over here where the red coins are, and then just collecting them one by one. Doing this while the clock is running is possible. I really wouldn't recommend it though, because it just gets really annoying. This isn't my least favorite level to get 100 coins in. Ultimately, I do believe that is Dire Docks, but this is probably bottom 2 or 3, if only because the platforming space of the level really doesn't feel fit for collecting coins like that. But that's also the risk you run with more linear platforming levels like this. Oops, I fell. Something I've never had happen to me before, because I don't think it's possible in most cases, is I'm not sure what happens if you grab a star and then fall into a bottomless pit in the collection animation. I'm going to assume it just counts as a death, but there's very few locations where I can encounter that easily. I mean, there's probably some places you could just get it guaranteed using 100 coins and all that. But in most gameplay opportunities, it's not really gonna happen unless you really screw up your placements. That's Tick-Tock Clock concluded, so now it's time for us to move into our final main course with only 8 stars remaining. 7 of which are obviously within that stage itself. One of the remaining ones is in the final Bowser level, and the remaining of the 120 we haven't mentioned yet is in a nearby hidden course. The next course is right over here in this hole. Welcome to course 15, Rainbow Ride. Cruiser crossing the rainbow. Rainbow Ride is a giant bottomless pit level with a bunch of floating platforms, but in specific, and people who've played Smash Bros. Melee will understand what's going on here pretty easily, we got some magic carpets you can ride on that follow the rainbow tracks. I hate the magic carpets that follow the rainbow tracks. Not so much for, like, hitbox reasons or anything like that. It's entirely a speed thing. This final level has some good platforming in it, but there's a lot of just waiting in a way that I feel is kind of counterintuitive to being the final level. I feel like it should be faster-paced platforming than this. It's the main reason why, and I briefly touched on this last time, I really don't like the last 2 levels in the game. As I feel like they're a little slow at times for what they should be. I think moments like this where you're on moving platforms should be more utilized earlier on so you can get used to the controls and absorb more of the level design. In a sparse level like this, I just don't feel it's super fitting, but also that's just my taste in platformers coming in, and as we've already covered, I'm not a big fan of this type of level design to begin with. Because it effectively makes it an auto-scroller, and while I don't have issues with auto-scrollers inherently, I have issues with a lot of auto-scrollers' scrolling speed. So our goal here in this first particular star is to reach the cruiser, which is a boat just over there. Now, notably, to get to the cruiser, you do need to ride that magic carpet that's over in the distance that goes around where we are right now. Some of the other magic carpets, there's at least ways around, like I ignored the one at the very start of the level by long jumping backwards to a different pole. But this one, you just kind of need to bear with it, and I like this level's aesthetics, I love the stage in Melee. I've just never been a fan of playing through this specific stage. Although, given especially how Wingcat Mario is like the literal poster child of the game, given that Mario wearing that is on the box art, the fact that the final level is a sky level, I think, is pretty fitting thematically. I just wish it had more things I enjoyed to do in it. If there's one thing I do appreciate about this level, though, it's that it does have a lot of different platforming mechanics in it, especially in terms of like block types or platforms that move and all that. So there's always some constant movement, even when you're on the auto-scrolling segments on the magic carpets. Again, it's just not my thing. Though notably, the donut blocks do get featured pretty heavily here. We've already seen them earlier in the game, namely in the second Bowser level and to get to the first star in Lethal Lava Land. But this is one of the few times you really get to see them from the side and go, oh, they're the donut blocks from Yoshi's Island, which I still need to do an LP of that game. I've been meaning to for some years. I just keep forgetting to, because my list is very impromptu in the moment. 1 star down already, and the next star is going to take us in a different direction in the level. Something I do like about Rainbow Ride is that when you get to the rotating platforms that I long jumped to in the last mission, I think do the same here. There are 4 different directions in that. One leads back to the entrance, but the other 3 directions all have their own stars to them. For this next one, we need to head back towards where we were heading towards the cruiser. But instead of taking the magic carpet that led us onto the cruiser itself, we need to take the one to its right that actively takes us towards the giant castle that's up in the sky if you look around using the camera. And honestly, with the exception of the 100 coin star, this is probably my least favorite star in the level because it requires the most of doing this. Riveting. In the meanwhile, though, let's get back to talking about something I haven't talked about in a little bit in this LP, the game's development staff. The next credit we haven't talked about yet is the system programmers. There are 2 listed, Yasunari Nishida and Yoshinori Tanimoto. Nishida started as a programmer, effectively, on Zelda 2, and then they were on staff for F-Zero, a programmer for Link to the Past, technical support on Yoshi's Story. They were a programmer for the Japanese Pokemon Stadium 1, and then for American Pokemon Stadium 1, which is Japanese Pokemon Stadium 2. They did tool design and programming on Wind Waker. They were on the environmental team for Wii Play and Wii Sports, and their last notable role that wasn't special thanks was as a Nintendoware person on Nintendo Land. Meanwhile, Tanimoto, their first project at Nintendo was actually this as a system programmer. After this, they were technical support on Star Fox 64 and Yoshi's Story. Ocarina of Time, same deal, same with Stadium 1, 2, and 3 in Japan. They also did tool support for Pikmin and Luigi's Mansion, as well as the re-releases of this on the DS, Star Fox 64 and Ocarina of Time on the 3DS, blah blah blah. Which, based on that context, I'm led to believe they probably worked more on the actual development of the consoles in question rather than on the game itself largely, but I know for a fact that's not entirely true, because Nishida, for instance, apparently did a lot of animation stuff for Mario in this very game. After them, we got the main set of programmers, who are Hajime Yajima, Daiki Iwamoto, and Toshio Iwawaki. Yajima, their credits list is pretty small. They were largely a programmer for Nintendo. They started on Pilot Wings, then they were on Super Mario Kart. They supported Argonaut and Star Fox. And after this, they worked on Mario Kart 64, and then their next credits were on Star Fox 2 and the SNES Classic as an assistant programmer, largely for the game in question. Iwamoto, though, they're a much more all-over-the-place programmer for Nintendo. They started on this, then they were a cinematic sequencer for Ocarina of Time. Mario Artist for the 64 DD, they were in special thanks. Luigi's Mansion, they were a programmer. Ocarina of Time, Master Quest, and A Link to the Past 4 Swords, they were programming. Pokemon Box programmer, 4 Swords Adventure, Boss Battle director, Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks, they were one of the directors, period. And afterwards, they worked on things like Wind Waker HD as a director, Luigi U, as a game designer, Triforce Heroes as a supervisor. Their most recent credits overall are on Echoes of Wisdom and Tears of the Kingdom as an assistant producer, which means they're probably an assistant producer for Zelda, period, nowadays. By the way, star for the stage just at the top of the house. When you get up there, watch out for the fire that can burn you, make you fall off the carpet. Otherwise, not too big a deal. Although, in that note, I should probably note, the magic carpets in this game do fade, but only after you've been off of them for a couple of seconds. So if you have to jump on a platform and then jump off of it to get back on the carpet, make sure you do so quickly. Otherwise, you're going to probably lose your platform and then not have an ability to do anything. Next mission is coins amassed in a maze. This is our red coin mission. We got a wall jumping maze over here of sorts, where we need to just platform around in it to find the 8 red coins. Long jump over to this one, but largely double jumping, back hopping, or side hopping will let you get the other ones pretty quickly. Going back to the staff, though, the final of the 3 programmers we mentioned was Toshio Iwawaki. Their first project was actually as a programmer on Doki Doki Panic. Meme about Mario 2 USA here. Get this, they were also a programmer on that, as well as Mario Bros. 3. Mario World, they were a programmer. A Link to the Past programmer, Mario All-Stars programmer, you sensing a theme here. Program director for Ocarina and Majora's Mask. Twilight Princess, they were a program director. Mario Maker, they were technical support. Star Fox Zero, programming support. Mario U Deluxe, programming support. Their most recent credits overall that aren't special thanks was actually the thing I just said, though. They were also a supervisor on Breath of the Wild. Meanwhile, their special thanks most recent stuff is Tears of the Kingdom and Super Mario Bros. Wonder, so even if they're not directly in the staff, they're still assisting in some form. Next up in the credits is Takumi Kawagoe, who's arguably one of the more influential, even though their name's not as well known as other people in this cast, because they were the camera programmers. So a lot of how we think about how cameras work in video games nowadays arguably started with them. Their first role was as a programmer on Pilot Wings. They then did map design for Dream Course. But starting with this onwards, they were on cameras in cinematics. After this, they did demo sequencing for Mario Kart 64 and Wave Race 64. They did cinema direction for Majora's Mask. Mario Sunshine, they did about the same. Same with Wind Waker, Double Dash, Four Swords Adventures. They were the supervisor for the intro movie for Mario Strikers Charged. Movie support on Mario Super Sluggers. Other M special thanks, probably about the same stuff. Skyward Sword and Ocarina of Time 3D, cinema planning. They became one of the main cinema people at Nintendo. To the point where they're still technically credited as that as recently as Mario Maker 2 and Breath of the Wild. Albeit their most recent credits are in re-releases or remasters like the Pikmin 1 and 2 remaster as special thanks. Mission 4 here in Rainbow Ride is Swinging in the Breeze, which largely has you deal with swinging platforms. So what's worth noting is that if one of the platforms has like a studded appearance, you won't slide down it. You can just rock at it no matter the angle it's at, which means you can do stuff like this, which probably doesn't feel the most realistic, but well, it helps us get to the star more quickly, so ultimately not too bad. Notably, the next star we're going after is going to make us follow almost the exact same route, but we're just going to move past where that star was to get onto another moving platform to get to another section where my least favorite platform in the world is. Moving past some of the other developers, though, something I haven't talked about yet that I probably actually really should is that Mario 64 is very notable, and that's the first Mario platformer where Mario had found his voice. This is the first platformer where Charles Martinet voiced the character and would go on to voice him for the next 20 plus some odd years. He only very recently retired and was replaced by Kevin F. Ghani starting in Mario Wonder. I love Charles's Mario voices. The dude enjoys playing the character clearly so much, but it was just getting time considering his age and all that. With that said, while Mario, Luigi, Wario, and Waluigi are most of his roles notably, he also played Parthenax in Skyrim and the main villain of Dragon Ball Super Hero, which always makes me laugh whenever I rewatch that. These triangles are the namesake of this specific star. You step on the white switch and they invert so you can actually platform on them, but if you're too slow, you slide off of them. And what's really dangerous is because of the width of this platform, it's very easy to slide off of them into the bottomless pit. I dislike those, if only because I think the timer is just a tad too strict for the scale of the platforming you need to do there. Even like an extra 3 seconds would have gone a long way. But that's arguably my least favorite star in the world done outside of the 100 coin star at least. Notably, there's another VA in the game, and it's Leslie Swan, who did some voice work here and again, but was largely involved in localization for Nintendo of America. After this, she did stuff like that for Hey You Pikachu, Majora's Mask, Mario Tennis, Kirby 64, both Oracle games for Legend of Zelda, Advance Wars, Golden Sun, Wind Waker, Metroid Prime, although I think she was technically an editor there. Mario and Luigi as a franchise to begin with. Largely, she did all that until about 2015, where I think she left the company, which I think her most recent credits are re-releases of games from prior consoles on other consoles, like Twilight Princess HD, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, or Woolly World. So, for this specific star, we need to activate the cannon. Activating the cannon requires getting back over here to the red coin maze and doing easily the largest chain of wall jumps in the game. Because of this star and the 100 coin star both requiring going up there in some form because the blue coin switch spawns its coins all up there, this is arguably some of the trickiest platforming in the game to do, and it takes a lot of practice to do right. I expect on a first playthrough, people are going to lose a lot of lives there. I really don't like how the wall jump feels in this game, but I'm not going to be too harsh on it because of that, because it's like it was the first game that was trying to do a lot of this stuff. It can feel clunky, and I'll say it feels clunky, but I'm not going to, like, lambast it forever because of that. It's just a fact of the history there where it had to be because it was one of the firsts. Notably, I almost did the 100 coin mission at the same time as this in practice, but I decided against doing it in the main recording, if only because having to do the wall jump chain twice while annoying is ultimately safer in the case I screw up the 100 coin mission at the last minute and lost progress on both stars. Especially because I think I was trying to make my last coin an enemy over by where the star is, and that's just not exactly the safest thing to do. We do have to go pretty out of our way to actually get to the cannon in this stage, though. We need to get to the back of the cruiser where we got the first star earlier this part. Which just requires another magic carpet ride, which I find tedious, but it ultimately doesn't take that long. The big thing to fear at the end of this mission is actively making the shot from the cannon over to where we need to go, which I believe is actively to Mario's left right now. When you get in the cannon, there's a giant rainbow ring and a platform in the distance. You don't need to shoot through the rainbow ring, albeit that is what the mission is named for. You just need to aim for the flagpole in the distance and grab onto it, otherwise you're probably gonna be dying and thus have to do the star effectively over again, which, well, to quote Mario's beloved rival, that's no good. The other thing to fear is that on the platform where the star is, there is one of the purple chuck-ya enemies. So if you miss your shot to the flagpole and still land on the platform and slide on it, if you don't get up quickly, there's a very good chance that chuck-ya will just grab you and throw you off the platform to your demise anyway. So you gotta be pretty quick in breaking that item block over there and actively getting the star. Otherwise, you're in for some disappointment and harm to your brain and soul. But with that, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 13, we're gonna go grab the remaining 3 stars and finish off the game. See you guys then.